Hello and welcome to Barb Talks. My husband and I like traveling to little tiny towns, and we recently went up to the Pacific Peninsula and took a look around up there. Well, when we arrived in town, we went to the Mariner Cafe, which is a family-owned restaurant. We talked to the waiter, and he was the son of the owners. I think he said he was a legacy family, and their family's been there for like hundreds of years. That's another fun thing about small towns is you can just strike up a conversation with people. They don't think it's weird. So we enjoyed the Mariner Cafe, a lot of tchotchke fishing mariner type stuff, decorations. And then there was a little mall area we walked around. And one of the stores was called Beck's Shoes. And it's another legacy store where the German immigrants came over and set up this shoe store there. Sequim caters to a retirement community. This Beck's Shoes had all kinds of shoes in wide and low heel and all kinds of interesting little things, including these never tie your shoelaces again things. And I like slipping my shoes on and off instead of having to tie and untie type of thing. So I got some of these laces in black and in white, and I'm putting them into my shoes. So yeah, those little things that you don't even know exist, we found in this little town. Another place we always like to go when we go to towns, if they've got a local radio station, because if it's a local radio station, they talk about the local weather, they talk about the local things that are happening. And this particular local station, Sequim, is made up of all these volunteers from around town. And when we walked in, the person on the air was a retired nurse. I think she went by Sassy Sally. And she gave us a tour of the studio, and we got to talk to the manager of the radio station. And they had a meeting room there where the police at that time were in doing some sort of a security safety seminar, and some of the townspeople were there learning about it. So just a little community like that where everybody knows what's going on, and the local radio station takes care of local needs. I really liked that. Then, of course, you have to go to the local library when you're in a small town, because that's usually where you find out all the scoop of what's the best restaurant, what kind of activities there are going on. They're building a new library, so the location that we went into was temporary. But if we ever go back there again, they're going to have a brand new library that's close to the high school and Carrie Blake Park, which is their big community park. We also found a high school baseball game going on, so we got to sit in the tiny little bleacher area right behind the home plate and watch the high school teams play. You don't necessarily need to go to a big stadium to see a game. Sometimes it's fun to just be outdoors watching a local high school team play. Sunny Farms store was a cute little store, like a country store, but it had all the types of organic foods local. There's surprisingly a large amount of farmers markets and local growing places around small towns. So it's fun to see the foods that they have available there. And then the following day, we flew around the Olympic Peninsula with my husband's college roommate. He just happens to have the hobby of flying, so he flew us around, and it was gorgeous seeing the Olympic mountains and the Salish Sea and the whole rainforest, parts of that, and other little towns in the area from the sky. We also went to the Railroad Bridge Park and the Dungeness River Nature Center, where we got to learn about the native background of that area, the Native Americans that lived there, the animals, the topography of the land, and beautiful bridge in this Dungeness River Center as well, where you could bike. In fact, there's a whole Olympic Discovery Trail that is, the bridge is in the middle of that. So in their little town, they've got this trail, Discovery Trail. It actually goes from Port Angeles, I believe, to Port Townsend. And it's walking, biking, hiking trail that is just beautiful. And then I was still up for going to thrift stores, but my husband decided he wanted to stay in the room and play his guitar. So it's always good to have a little separate time when you're on vacation with someone as well. The next day, we went whale watching. We got to Port Townsend. We got to meet with Pete Henke again. The same guy who had the airplane also owns a whale watching place called Puget Sound Express. And they do whale watching and other adventures. So we got to get on this boat and learn about the different types of whales that we might see. It's not like you can plan what whales are going to be there. Different times of the year, there's different types of whales in the Salish Sea and other wildlife, like there's sea lions. And we even saw a bald eagle while we were on the ship. And the type of whales we saw were, I believe, the orcas. There were several families of orcas. That's the other great thing about a whale watching tour is they know the different families of whales that are in the area. I guess you can tell by their fins or the spots on their back. And they're saying, oh, that's E317, and they've got this many kids, and they travel in this particular pack. And the day we were there were 2 different whale pods that don't usually travel together that were traveling together. And so we got to hear all this inside information about which whales were out there. And it was just fascinating. It was a beautiful day, too.
Whales and populations are faring better, right? And so that's these big feather whales, they're growing about 3 to 5% a year. And their offspring is pretty viable. Unfortunately, that's not the case. For the southern residents, they're pretty endangered. And so their offspring does not support it.
It's really good to have those
Yeah, which is, you don't want to approach them. You kind of just want to, what we're doing right now is just paralleling their direction of travel. That's really the best practice, because we don't want to be impeding them in any way. So.
And I got to meet the girl that sat next to us. Her name was Philippa from Germany. She'd never been on a whale tour before. And I got to visit with her a little bit. Hello, Philippa. And Chris got to meet Captain, and I got to get a picture. We also enjoyed the Sequim Botanical Garden and a small Chinese garden. Those were just beautiful. It's fun in small towns because everything's smaller. So you get to experience things that maybe would be overwhelming if you went to a large garden or a large baseball game. You go to a small town and everything is doable. Everything doesn't rattle your nervous system to be able to go there. And we walked to the Shipley Center. They don't have a senior center. They have the Shipley Center because it's open to anybody to come to, but it's run and kind of focused on seniors. And they just happened to be having a bazaar that day. So there are all these hand-knitted items and wood-carved items and happy people there. They had a little cafe, so Chris and I had something to eat at their cafe, and then we walked downtown Sequim. It took about 23 minutes without stopping if you walked from one end of downtown to the other. I like having a walkable city that I can get to things that I need to without having to get into a car and drive necessarily. Another day we went to the Purple Haze Lavender Farm. Even though it's not technically lavender season yet because the lavender wasn't open, we were just driving around looking at stuff, and we decided we'd pull into this lavender farm, see if it was open, see if there was anything to look at. Just happened to be that they did have a little store there. So we wandered into the little store. We took some pictures, went outside, did a walk around. There were these beautiful trees, those weeping willows, that my husband and I got some pictures under because the light was amazing. I guess Purple Haze Lavender Farms also has weddings there. They have like a barn you can rent. And it was just peaceful and beautiful. Walked around, had a good time there. That evening we went to one of those, I guess it's called a farm to table type of experience called Nourish Sequim. They had these specialty dishes that were made from whatever foods they could find that were fresh and in season. And it was one of those meals that you do maybe once in your lifetime because it was over budget for what we would usually spend on a meal. It was for the experience of it. and it was an enjoyable experience. The next day, we went to the River House Bakery and Bistro so that we could meet a friend of mine that I haven't seen since I was in my 20s. And her name's Cindy. We were both radio people. So that's kind of how we know each other, through the radio industry. And it was just good getting back in touch with her. In fact, she just recently moved to Sequim with her husband. So she's brand new there as well. Another fun thing about small towns, again, is that you can just talk to anybody. And we were in a place called Ben's Bikes, because there's a lot of bike riding in that area, because there is some nice flat land. Yes, you can be up in the hills, but the city itself is on some flat, easily bikeable land. And I talked to the dad of Ben, whose name was Sam, at Ben's Bikes, asked him about three-wheelers, because even though I have a two-wheeler bike, there's probably going to become a time when I will prefer a three-wheeler so that I can have a big bag in the back and go get groceries and not worry about tipping over type of thing. And Sam gave us all kinds of good information about the area. Another thing that I'm interested in, as you know by the Barb's Talks channel, is that I like gardening. So I had to go find out information from master gardeners about the area in Sequim and what grows there, and just find out what their garden community is like. And I got to meet a lady by the name of Patricia. And it turns out Patricia has a little business called Monte Vista Medical Herb Farm, or Medicinal Herb Farm. And her name's Patricia Starr. And what I really liked about meeting Patricia is she was so knowledgeable about all these different herbal plants in the garden, what they did, how they tasted. And she would say, well, taste some of that. And what do you think of this? And smell that. And so I'm picking things and eating them and smelling them. And we're talking about stuff. And I'm taking all these notes about these different plants. I realized that we were only supposed to be there till noon. It was 10 after. And so I was telling Patricia, hey, thank you for your time, but I realize I'm over the amount. And she would say, and then this plant. And so I'd keep listening, because I'm not going to go away if somebody's still talking about stuff. And her driver came over thinking that I was wearing her out, because Patricia is elderly. And the driver was saying, well, to me, she was going, well, you can get books about this. You don't have to keep asking. And then Patricia would say, and then this plant. So her driver was going, oh, kind of stepped back, realizing that Patricia was still in her element. So I just really enjoyed the time. Thank you, Patricia. And then that afternoon, we went walking around Robin Hill Farm County Park. They also had horse trails here. So if you had a horse in the area and you wanted to go for a little hike with your horse, you could take the horse trails. And then they had hiking trails for the hikers. And it turned out that the other road that I was telling you about, that Discovery Trail kind of went right by the Robin Hill Farm County Park. I just love how everything was so integrated, so that you could join up different parks and farms and places without having to go out of your way. That's another thing that I like about smaller towns, is it does seem like everything's closer because it's so small. And then on another evening, we went to the art walk. They have a First Friday art walk throughout the year. I got to meet some of the artists, and the Nancy Pete studio. What I liked about her stuff, her artwork was so bright. Her business card shows it, but she also was giving away little buttons and stickers. So I loved her bright work. And if I ever had the money to be able to buy fine art, I would certainly be going to Nancy Pete Studios, because I loved the brightness of it. I loved the open, airy, playful nature of it. I also enjoyed the glasswork design of Sherry Cox Wetstein. She had one piece of art. I didn't feel comfortable taking pictures of it, because if you take pictures of somebody else's art, then it kind of feels like you're stealing. What I liked about her glass art was she had this, it was green glass in a square, but it had this woman's face with all of the fruits and flowers around. It's kind of a woman version of Green Man, if you've ever seen Green Man pictures. but it was in glass. So you could like put it in a window and it would reflect the color of what it was. So I really liked what she had as well. And it was just nice talking to the artists. And it was an art walk, so there were many galleries to take a look through. And it wasn't just gallery art, it was also music. So you'd walk into bars and there'd be musicians playing, and you'd walk into stores because they'd have local art in their stores as well. I think that's another thing about little towns is that everybody, it just seems like they help each other out that way. If you've got a little local store, you carry some of the local artists in it and the craftsmen, like with their earrings. Oh, that was something I got at a farmer's market that I went to, were these earrings, which I should probably talk about that. We also went to a farmer's market, and it was part of the irrigation festival. We just happened to be there during the 130th Sequim Irrigation Festival. They had these printouts that told you what was going on. They had music, the kids parade, the trash and show, entertainment, arts and crafts, family fun days, things for the kids to play and do, and little games. And they had a murder mystery breakfast, food trucks. It was just a lot of fun. The Irrigation Festival, I believe, is the longest running festival in Washington State, 130 years. That's a long time for a local festival to be going on. They had the 3 princesses and the prince, and they were just dolled up. I should have got a picture of them so I could show you. Any of these small town festivals where they have like Rose Festival or Apple Blossom, actually they have those in big cities too, but you get to see the princesses or the princes that are representing the city, and it's just nice to know that these youth are taking that seriously and representing their city well. And met Cindy and her husband. We got to meet him, Kevin, and got to walk around the festival together. And then we went out to eat at a place called Black Bear Cafe. I guess they're like all over the place in the Midwest. It's a chain restaurant, but it was good food, and it was even better conversation. So it was fun to visit and enjoy a vacation time in a small town where I got to meet new friends and got to spend time with some old friends and got to explore and enjoy nature and beauty and just the opportunities that a small town brings. I hope you get the opportunity, if it's something you enjoy, to check out some small little towns close to you and help out their community by purchasing their products at farmers markets, helping out their local business by eating foods in their restaurants, and enjoying and appreciating what they bring to the community. Thanks for watching Barb Talks.
That's a huge one, right? On the right. Wow. It's like 6 whales? More?